This is our Chapter 10, Lecture 5, and here we will discuss modern Japan. We start this discussion with a talk about the Japan model. The Japan model is a unique adaptation of Western methods to indigenous Japanese culture and values, and includes government guidance, not control, competitive bureaucracy, proper sequencing of development processes, focus on comparative advantage and in regional specialization, wise investment of surplus capital, development of infrastructure, emphasis on education and upgrading the labor force, population planning, and long-range perspective. A major factor in the success of the model for economic development is that it allowed government to work closely with business to capitalize modernization, which in turn allowed businesses to focus on long-term investment planning rather than short-term profits to acquire capital for investment. It helped Japan become a powerful force in the 20th century and was adapted by other Asian states who attempted to do the same thing. These 20th century adaptations to unique state conditions make us consider that this model might be now termed the East Asian model. But it was developed in Japan, and other nations, especially places like South Korea, sought to replicate this model for their advantages. Urbanization and industrial regions. Levels of urbanization increased after the Second World War. The Tokaido megalopolis is the largest concentration of urban industrial activity in Japan. It is on the southern end of the island of Honshu and includes Tokyo, Nagoya, to the Osaka-Kyoto region. Industrialization provided the major stimulation for this urbanization. Tokyo is the imperial capital. It is the seat of Japanese government, the center of media and advertising, the country's dominant financial and corporate center, home to the greatest number of universities. It's the home of the Tsukuba Science City, the first and largest of Japan's many planned research nodes, or technopoles. Technopoles help put together university and education with the needs and development requirements for industry, and are designed to improve and accelerate economic advancement. This city is the Asian Pacific Rim economic hub. It's one of three command centers of global finance, including New York and London. And it continues to be a growing megacity, currently with about 8.6 million people. Japan and landforms. Japan occupies a small but geologically active portion of the Pacific Ring of Fire. The mountains are rugged with steep slopes, but not tall by world standards. Most peaks are below 6,000 feet. 10 are higher than 9,000 feet. There are 54 volcanoes within the island chain. The rest of the region is flat surface, found either as terraces at the downside slope of mountains or along relatively narrow coastal plains. Tokyo occupies the Kanto Plain. Resources of Japan. Japan is severely lacking in resources. Japan must import everything needed for energy production and industrial development, with the exception of hydroelectric power. Japan is only 17.5% self-sufficient for energy in 2005. Japan and environmental challenges. Location and insularity. It is in the northeast corner of the Asian region. It's a country a little smaller than the state of California. It's an island country off a large continental mainland, and as such is often compared to Great Britain. It's an archipelago country. Main body is composed of the 4 large islands we've discussed in the previous lecture. The climate varies due to the latitudinal range, the mountains, and the fact that it's surrounded by large bodies of waters like the Pacific Ocean. It is part of the monsoon climate, a little different from the rest of East Asia due to the fact that it has a more northern location and a maritime environment. Thus, precipitation is more consistent throughout the year. Environmental challenges. The Fukushima nuclear power plant. In the late afternoon of March 11, 2011, Japan experienced the world's worst nuclear disaster since the 1986 Chernobyl accident in Ukraine. An earthquake registering 9 on the Richter scale occurred 43 miles off the coast of northeastern Honshu. This was the most powerful earthquake experienced in Japan and the 5th most powerful earthquake experienced in the world since 1900. The earthquake generated tsunami waves that flooded 3 reactors in the Fukushima nuclear power plant complex. This is a region of several major industries, including chemical plants, and the destruction of the nuclear power plant also affected the industrial region around it. The region had to be evacuated due to high radiation readings after the destruction of the nuclear power plant. So, in this vein, let's talk about a small globalization diversion, a chemical called MEK. MEK is methyl ethyl keton. It's commonly used as an industrial solvent worldwide. Ube Enterprises or Industries in Japan was located, or one of their plants was located near the Fukushima power plant and had to be shut down due to the meltdown of the reactor in March 2011. Ube was the largest producer of MEK at that time. MEK production had to be ended due to the infrastructure problems created by the reactor meltdown. As such, there was a demand for MEK that could not be met. Temporarily, there was a product similar to MEK called MEK substitute that was used and was successful in some manufacturing processes, but only a few. China recognized the niche that needed to be filled, and so MEK production was increased in China after the disaster, and China then became the largest producer. More recently, Japan has begun production of MEK again and is beginning to return to its predominant chemical production of this product. Economic challenges. Urban challenges. There is an increasing urban population, and with this increasing urban population, there of course comes infrastructure challenges, including provision of water, sewage. Housing is also an important and expensive commodity for this increasing population. Pollution of the environment. There has been intensified environmental pollution, and in the 1970s, Japan created their own environmental agency similar to the United States Environmental Protection Agency in reaction to protests about increasing environmental challenges. And there are regional imbalances. Economic development has favored the Pacific side of the island with Tokyo serving as that primate city for industrial and economic development. Automobiles, with their attendant air pollution, traffic congestion, noise, strip development, and urban sprawl connections represent one negative consequence of Japanese modernization. Another negative consequence is the high and rising cost of housing, which leads to urban sprawl and exacerbates the problems associated with automobiles. Japan's economic development is concentrated on the Pacific side of Honshu at the expense of the western side, resulting in regional imbalances. The agricultural sector of Japan's economy exists primarily through massive government grants, subsidies, and protections. Consequently, Japan has extremely high food prices. Japan has entered phase 4 of the demographic transformation model, post-industrial. Its population is getting smaller, older, leading to the need for increased immigration of workers. And of course, pollution, as a consequence of the Japanese model, has resulted in particularly in air pollution and land pollution, as the need to find a place for waste in a small island with large populations creates environmental issues. Speaking of the demographic changes due to the industrialization and modernization, and the fact that it's in phase 4 of the demographic transformation model, we see a chart of Japan's changing population for 1950, 2010, and a projection for 2050. In 1950, the population pyramid resembled a tall pyramid with a wider range of younger populations, decreasing proportionally with age. 2010, we see a middle bulge in the population distribution, and this, of course, demonstrates the change into phase 4. Projection to have a top-heavy pyramid with a very large older population, of course, complicates the continued sustainable industrialization and economic development for the country. So, a summary of our Chapter 10 discussions. While the countries of East Asia are characterized by export-led economies that are in some form government administrated, each has experienced very different development trajectories. Japan has grown into the world's second largest economy. China assumed the rank of a global economic power as a result of its late 1970s reform policies that reduced the commanding role of the state in economic growth and spread that into subregions of China, especially along the East Coast. Although the globalization of China's economy has brought many material benefits, lingering problems call into question the durability of its economic success. China's neighbors have experienced different economic growth trajectories, but there are many similarities in these. Japan was the first non-Western country to industrialize its base on its own distinctive model of modernization and development. This model has been copied by other nations more recently as they also seek to improve their economic situation. That's it for Chapter 10, and I'll talk to you again soon.